I never believed in ghosts. Not after 12 years hauling freight across this godforsaken country, staring down endless blacktop under starless skies. I've seen my share of weirdness. Coyotes with eyes like embers, dust devils twisting like angry spirits, truckers cracking up from too many miles and too little sleep. But that night on old Route 66 changed everything. It was just past midnight, the fog rolling in thick as regret, when my headlights pierced the haze and caught her standing there, a pale figure in a white dress, waving like her life depended on it. Against every instinct screaming in my gut, I slowed my rig and pulled over. Little did I know, she wasn't alive at all. My name's Mark, and I've been a long-haul trucker since I dropped out of community college back in '03. It's a lonely job, but it pays the bills and keeps me moving, away from the ex-wife, the regrets, the small-town suffocation of my Ohio roots. That particular run was from Chicago to LA, sticking to the remnants of Route 66 for nostalgia's sake. They call it the Mother Road, but out there in the Arizona stretch, between Flagstaff and Kingman, it's more like a graveyard of faded dreams. Abandoned motels with shattered neon signs, rusted gas pumps standing sentinel in the desert wind, and miles of nothing but scrub brush and shadows that seem to whisper your name. The air was crisp that night, carrying the faint scent of creosote and ozone, like a storm was brewing even though the sky was clear. My CB radio had been silent for hours, just static crackling like distant laughter. I was tired, bone-weary from 18 hours behind the wheel, popping no DAWs to stay sharp. Why was I out there? Simple. A load of auto parts that needed to beat the interstate traffic. But deep down, I think I was running from myself again. As I eased the semi to a stop, gravel crunching under the tires, she approached the passenger side. Her dress fluttered in the breeze, thin and outdated, like something from an old movie. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with hair like spun moonlight and skin so pale it almost glowed. "Need a lift?" I called out, rolling down the window. She nodded, her eyes wide and pleading, but she didn't say a word at first. I unlocked the door, and she climbed up into the cab with a grace that didn't match the desperation in her wave. The door shut with a soft click, and immediately the cab felt colder, like I'd opened a freezer. I chalked it up to the night air. "Where are you headed?" I asked, shifting into gear and pulling back onto the road. The fog swallowed my taillights behind us. She whispered, "Home." Her voice was faint, like an echo from far away. I glanced over. Her hands were folded in her lap, fingers twisting nervously. "All right, miss, what's your name?" "Emily," she said, staring straight ahead. But that was only the beginning of the strangeness. We drove in silence for a few miles, the engine's rumble the only sound breaking the quiet. I tried to make small talk, to ease the tension. "What brings you out here this late? Car breakdown?" She turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting mine for the first time. They were deep, almost bottomless, and I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. "I was in an accident," she murmured, "long ago." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unexplained. I laughed it off nervously. "Well, glad you're okay now. This stretch is dangerous. Folks call it Bloody 66 for a reason. Too many wrecks back in the day." She didn't respond, just kept staring at the road as if it held some secret. The dashboard lights cast eerie shadows on her face, making her look even paler. I noticed her dress was spotless. No dirt from the roadside. No sweat despite the desert heat earlier that day. Odd, but I pushed it aside. The fog thickened, forcing me to slow down, my high beams reflecting back like a wall. Every now and then, I'd catch a glimpse of old ruins, derelict diners with boarded windows, signs creaking in the wind. It felt like we were the only two souls left in the world. Then she spoke again, unprompted. Do you ever feel like you're trapped, reliving the same mistake over and over? Her question hit me like a gut punch. I'd been thinking about my divorce, how I'd driven away from my life just like this, night after night. Yeah, I admitted. All the time. She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. And just like that, the cab grew even colder, my breath fogging the windshield. I wish I'd turned around right then. The miles blurred together, the road a hypnotic ribbon unwinding into the darkness. I kept glancing at her, something nagging at me. Her presence was off. No scent of perfume or shampoo, just a faint musty odor like wet earth after rain. My heater was cranked, but I could see goosebumps on my arms. "You cold?" I asked, reaching for a blanket in the back. When I turned back, she was gone, just vanished. The passenger seat empty, door still locked, no sign she'd ever been there. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What the hell?" I muttered, slamming on the brakes. The truck skidded to a halt, tires screeching on the pavement. I jumped out, flashlight in hand, sweeping the beam across the foggy roadside. "Emily? Hey, miss?" Nothing. No footprints in the dust, no rustle in the bushes. The desert was silent, oppressively so, like it was holding its breath. Panic rising, I checked under the truck, thinking maybe she'd fallen out. Impossible. But my mind was racing. The fog swirled around me, cold fingers brushing my skin. In the distance, I thought I heard a whisper, faint and pleading. "Home!" I spun around, beam cutting through the mist, but saw only shadows dancing like ghosts. Shaken, I climbed back in, hands trembling on the wheel. Had I imagined her, hallucinated from fatigue? But the seat was still indented, like someone had sat there. The sound grew closer, but I realized it was just the wind. Or was it? I drove on, mind reeling, until I spotted the glow of a truck stop ahead, an oasis of flickering fluorescence in the void. The place was called Dusty's Diner, a relic from the 50s with peeling paint and a neon sign buzzing like angry bees. Inside, the air was thick with grease and coffee. A few grizzled truckers hunched over counters, murmuring in low tones. I slid onto a stool, ordering black coffee to steady my nerves. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading Marge, poured it without a word. "Rough night?" she asked, noticing my pallor. I hesitated, then spilled it all. The woman in white, the vanishing act. "You picked up Emily," he said, voice gravelly from years of smokes. "She died on that road 20 years ago. Car crash at the old crossroads. Drunk driver plowed into her on her way home from a dance. Drivers still see her, waving for a ride. Always says home, then poops. Gone." My coffee cup rattled in my saucer. "You're messing with me." He shook his head. "Wish I was, son. Happened to me once back in '08. Left a chill that never goes away." Marge leaned in. "They say she's stuck reliving that night. Warns folks to be careful." But as he spoke, I felt eyes on me from the shadows outside the window, watching, waiting. But as I merged onto the road, the CB crackled to life, static at first, then a whisper. "Home!" Emily's voice, clear as day. I yanked the knob, but it wouldn't turn off. "Who's there?" I barked into the mic. No response, just faint laughter fading into white noise. My speedometer crept up, the road blurring, but every shadow seemed to take her shape, standing, waving. I passed an abandoned motel, windows like empty eyes, and swore I saw a figure in white flit across the lot. Heart pounding, I pushed the pedal harder, the engine roaring in protest. Then ahead the crossroads loomed, a notorious spot. Locals called it Devil's Elbow, where accidents piled up like forgotten bones. As I approached, the temperature plummeted again, frost creeping across the windshield. In the rear view, a pale face materialized in the sleeper cab. Emily, eyes pleading, "Stop," she whispered, voice echoing in my skull. I slammed the brakes, skidding wildly. The truck fishtailed, gravel flying, and for a split second, I felt the wheels lift, time slowing as if I were tumbling into the abyss. When it stopped, inches from the edge, she was gone again. But that wasn't the worst part. What if she wasn't warning me, but luring me? Compelled, I followed it, boots crunching on dry earth, the beam revealing faded tire tracks. It led to an abandoned house, boards rotting, roof sagging like defeat. The door hung ajar, inviting. Inside, dust motes danced in my light, the air thick with decay. Photographs littered the floor, yellowed and curled. I picked one up, a young woman in a white dress, smiling, dated 2005. Emily Harper, scrawled on the back, killed on Route 66, seeking home. My blood ran cold. The report clipped to it detailed the crash. A semi-like mine veered off, slamming into her car. The driver? Never caught, but described as a long hauler from Ohio. Me? No, couldn't be. I'd only been trucking 12 years. But the date, 20 years ago, I'd been in a minor fender bender nearby, fleeing my old life. Had I? No, impossible. Yet as I stared, the photo's eyes seemed to move, accusing. A cold hand brushed my shoulder. I whirled. Nothing. But outside, my truck's lights flickered, engine revving on its own. I ran back, jumping in, peeling out as the house receded in the mirror. Dawn broke as I hit the next town, but the chill lingered. I quit trucking that week, sold the rig, tried to forget. But late at night, in my quiet apartment, I hear it, the whisper on the wind, home. And sometimes, in the mirror, I see her standing behind me, waiting for that last ride. If you're out on Route 66 after dark, don't stop. You never know who's really thumbing for a lift, or what they'll drag you into. I never thought fatigue could summon demons, but after 14 hours behind the wheel, hauling steel beams from Chicago to Denver, I learned otherwise. It was around 2 a.m. on that endless stretch of I-80 through Nebraska's plains, the kind of road where the horizon swallows everything, and the only company is the hum of your tires and the occasional howl of wind whipping through the grass. My headlights sliced through the inky black, revealing nothing but flatland dotted with distant silos like forgotten tombstones. Then, out of nowhere, this massive shadow bolted across the lane. A huge black dog, bigger than any I'd seen, with fur like midnight and eyes glowing red like coals from hell. I yanked the wheel hard, the rig shuddering as it veered toward the shoulder, air brakes hissing in protest. My heart hammered as I straightened out, glancing in the mirrors. Nothing. No thud, no body. Just empty road mocking me. That was the moment I knew something unnatural was hunting me. My name's Jake, and I've been a long-haul trucker for over a decade now. Ever since I left the factory job in Ohio that was sucking the life out of me. It's not glamorous. Endless caffeine, bad diner food, and nights where the cab feels like a coffin on wheels. But it keeps me free, or so I tell myself. That night I was pushing it, trying to make up time after a delay in Iowa. I-80 through Nebraska is notorious for its desolation. Miles of prairie where cell service drops, and the wind carries whispers that sound too human. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and diesel, and the sky was a void, no stars, just oppressive clouds pressing down. I'd popped a couple of energy drinks, but my eyes were heavy, lids drooping like they had weights. Why was I out there? A tight deadline, bills piling up back home, the usual grind. But deep down, I was chasing that illusion of control, mile after mile. The CB radio crackled with static, no chatter from other drivers, everyone else smart enough to bed down. I rubbed my eyes, shook my head, and kept going. Little did I know, the road had its own way of warning fools like me. The first sighting shook me, but I wrote it off as a trick of the light, maybe a coyote amplified by exhaustion. I cranked the radio, blasting some old country tune to stay alert, the lyrics about lost highways feeling eerily fitting. The planes stretched on, unbroken except for the occasional reflector post glinting like eyes in the dark. About 10 minutes later, the temperature in the cab dropped, a chill seeping through the vents despite the heater blasting. I shivered, glancing at the dash. Everything normal. Then, ahead, those red eyes pierced the night again, right in the middle of the lane. The dog was there, massive, shoulders like a bear's, standing defiant as my high beams washed over it. Its fur seemed to absorb the light, and those eyes. They locked onto mine, burning with an intelligence that wasn't animal. I slammed the brakes, the rig jackknifing slightly, trailers groaning as 80,000 pounds fought momentum. Smoke rose from the tires, the acrid smell filling the air. I came to a stop, breathing ragged, sweat beading on my forehead despite the cold. I grabbed my flashlight, jumped out, boots hitting the pavement with a thud that echoed too loudly in the silence. Sweeping the beam, I searched the road, the ditches. Nothing. No tracks, no blood, no sign. The wind picked up, rustling the grass like laughter. My skin crawled. I felt watched, like the planes themselves had eyes. Climbing back in, I muttered a prayer I hadn't said since childhood. But as I shifted into gear, I heard it. A low growl, faint, coming from the shadows outside. What if it wasn't gone? I drove on, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, mind racing. Was I hallucinating? I'd heard stories at truck stops about microsleeps, where your brain nods off for seconds, conjuring phantoms. But this felt real, the chill lingering in my bones. The highway unspooled ahead, a black ribbon through the void, with no exits for miles. I tried the CB. Breaker, breaker. Anyone out there on I-80 westbound? Saw something weird. Big dog on the road. Static answer, then a crackle. Copy that, driver. You all right? A gravelly voice. Another trucker maybe 20 miles back. I spilled it. The size, the eyes, the vanishing. He chuckled, but it was forced. Sounds like the black dog, son. Old legend. Means you're pushing too hard. Pull over before it pulls you under. I laughed it off, but his words stuck. The plains felt more isolated now, the darkness pressing against the windows like a living thing. Every shadow in the ditch looked like it could sprout legs and charge. My eyelids drooped again, the monotony hypnotic. Then in the rear view, a shape loped alongside the trailer, those red eyes reflecting back. I accelerated, but it kept pace, effortless, its form blurring at the edges. Panic surged. I veered slightly, correcting just in time. The growl returned louder, vibrating through the cab. I had to stop. This wasn't just fatigue, it was a curse. But stopping meant facing whatever was out there alone. Spotting the glow of a rest stop ahead, a dingy oasis with a few rigs parked under sodium lights. I pulled in, tires crunching gravel. The place was quiet, wind whistling through chain-link fences, a vending machine humming like a distant beehive. I killed the engine, the sudden silence deafening. Stepping out, the cold bit deep, carrying the faint scent of ozone, like a storm brewing underground. Inside the building, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. A couple of drivers nursed coffees at a table. An old mechanic in grease-stained overalls tinkered with a coffee machine. I grabbed a cup, black and bitter, and sat, still trembling. "Rough night?" the mechanic asked, eyeing me. I nodded, recounting the dog, the size, the eyes, the way it vanished. The room went still. The other drivers exchanged glances. The mechanic shook his head, wiping his hands. "That ain't no dog, son. That's the black shuck. Old English legend, but it's crossed over here to our highways. Massive black hound, red eyes like fire, omen of death. Truckers see it on lonely stretches like I-80 when they're beat. It's a warning. Death's near if you don't heed it. He leaned in, voice dropping. Back in '98, a buddy of mine ignored it. Kept driving, crashed into a guardrail near Kearney. They said fatigue, but I know better. Shuck got him. My stomach twisted. Was it real? Folklore bleeding into reality. The mechanic patted my shoulder. Park here tonight. Don't tempt it. I didn't argue. The growl echoed in my mind. But as I headed to my bunk, I glanced out. The shadows under the rig shifted, and for a split second, red eyes winked back. Curled in my sleeper berth, the cab a cocoon of blankets and regret, sleep evaded me. The rest stop's lights filtered through the curtains, casting eerie patterns on the walls. Wind rocked the truck gently, like a lullaby from the grave. I dozed fitfully, dreams haunted by bounding shadows and crimson stairs. A thump jolted me awake, something on the roof. Heart pounding, I peered out the window. Nothing, but the cold was deeper, frost etching the glass in fractal patterns that looked like claw marks. The CB hissed to life unbidden. Static, then a whisper, "Keep driving." Not my voice, but familiar, like an echo of my own exhaustion. I killed the power, but the whisper lingered in my head. Pacing the cab, I recalled the mechanic's words. Black shuck from foggy English moors, adapted to American asphalt. Truckers' tails flooded back. One saw it chase his rig for miles on Route 66. Another swerved to avoid it and dodged a hidden pothole that would have flipped him. Was it a guardian or a reaper? The plains outside seemed alive, grass undulating like fur on a beast's back. I checked my watch. 4 a.m., the witching hour. Another thump, this time at the door. I froze, breath fogging the air. Slowly, I cracked the window. Red eyes stared up from the step. The dog's maw parted in a silent snarl, teeth gleaming. It wasn't flesh. Shadows swirled within its form. I slammed the window, backing away. "This isn't real," I whispered, but the cab shook as if struck. The engine roared to life on its own, lights flickering. Panic clawed at me. I had to confront it or be consumed. Bolting from the cab, flashlight in hand, I faced the night. The rest stop was deserted now. Other rigs, silent tombs. The beam cut through the dark, revealing the dog crouched by my tires, larger up close, muscles rippling under ethereal fur. Its eyes bored into me, not with hunger, but judgment. "What do you want?" I yelled, voice cracking. It tilted its head, growl rumbling like thunder. Memories flashed, past runs where I'd pushed limits, near misses from drowsiness. This was no hallucination. It was my reckoning. The mechanic's story echoed, "Ignore it, and death follows." The dog advanced, paws silent on pavement, breath visible as mist. I backed toward the building, but it circled, hurting me. Then revelation hit. The shuck wasn't killing. It was saving. Fatigue hallucinations, yes, but rooted in truth. Drowsy driving kills more than drunks on these roads. Nebraska's I-80 sees jackknifes yearly from tired eyes. The dog lunged, but phased through me, a cold wave washing over. I collapsed, gasping. When I looked up, it was gone, the night still again. Trembling, I returned to the truck, vowing to rest. But as dawn crept, painting the plains gold, news crackled on the radio. Semi-jackknifed on I-80 west of here. Driver killed instantly. Fatigue suspected. The stretch I'd been on. If I'd kept going, I quit pushing limits after that. But the shuck haunts my dreams. Sometimes on quiet nights, I see red eyes in the mirror, a reminder that the road doesn't forgive. If you're out on I-80 after dark, tired and alone, watch for the shadows. The black shuck might save you, or claim you.